So what does all this mean for Chrysler creditors? Well, let's bring in John Ehrlichman for more on that side of the story. And John, we heard Nick Sargent call this a curveball.
A curveball, but we know every pitcher throws a different curve. And you just highlighted some of the uncertainties at this point, whether or not this is a logistical issue, more time is needed, or if indeed there is this fundamental view that these secured lenders deserve better treatment. The context, and we've already told this story in the past, is that these Indiana funds hold a very small piece of the pie, basically about 1% of the secured loans that are on the table, basically $42 million. They paid 43 cents on the dollar for that investment. And remember that most of these secured lenders, and we're talking more than 90%, are already on board with the idea of getting $2 billion in cash for $6.9 billion in unsecured loans, so around 29 cents on the dollar. Those Marchione comments you just highlighted, very interesting, especially if you're a secured lender. But at the same time, we know the Chrysler lawyers continue to share some tough talk overall, saying if Fiat's not in the picture, what happens next? You mentioned the idea of liquidation, and they have to wonder what happens to them under that type of scenario.
Sure. Now, what happens with GM, where the creditor situation is different here?
Is a different one,
yeah.
And we're talking about unsecured lenders in that particular space. We talk often about that $27 billion in unsecured debt. What is interesting with the GM story is that recently we had talked about distressed funds showing some interest in GM's bonds when they were trading at around 5 cents on the dollar. Now, analysts at credit sites had recently suggested perhaps these bondholders would get 15 cents on the dollar under this bankruptcy situation. These bonds now trading at 10 cents. They were recently up to that 15-cent level, Scarlett. That would suggest potentially that some people who made some quick money in those GM bonds have actually taken some money off the table.
Okay, we'll keep an eye on this. John Ehrlichman, thanks very much. Now, coming up, a Bloomberg exclusive, General Motors bankruptcy lawyer Harvey Miller on how his fast-track bankruptcy strategy will work for GM and why it doesn't trample on creditors' rights. That's coming up at 10 a.m. only on Bloomberg Television.